How's it going, ladies and gents? My name's Andy, and today let's talk about young players, namely the ones who have not yet lived up to their full potential. I won't be covering guys from the 2018 or 2019 draft because I think it's still a bit too early to judge them. Instead, all of these guys in my video are gonna be between the 2014 to 2017 draft classes. Young players who have had a few seasons under their belts but have yet to live up to their expectations. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Number 7, Stanley Johnson, the 8th pick of the 2015 draft. On draft night, Johnson was being compared to guys like Kawhi and Ron Artest, and physically he looked very similar, incredibly quick and incredibly strong with amazing footwork on defense. In his rookie season, he made it very clear that he was a defensive stud, gaining praise around the league for his suffocating, aggressive but smart defense, similar to what we saw from Kawhi and Artest back in the day. Offensively, he was expected to develop too, but that just has not happened yet. 4 years have passed and his offense is still as raw as ever. His numbers reflect that too, and despite his great work ethic, it hasn't translated well into the actual games. It's a combination of his lack of offensive talent and his inconsistent role. Playing with ball-dominant guys like Blake Griffin and Reggie Jackson has not helped his development, especially since Stanley is not great off the ball either. I think the Pistons just couldn't use him properly and did not want to wait. Maybe now, after getting traded to New Orleans, something could change. Number 6, Dragan Bender, the 4th pick of the 2016 draft. Besides having the greatest name in NBA history, he hasn't done much. In his first 3 seasons in Phoenix, he has shown flashes of excellence. In January of 2018, he had a game where he scored 20 points on 6 of 8 from 3. Other games where he'd have like 15 points and 15 rebounds or something like that, but he has not been able to maintain any kind of consistency. In the 2017-18 season, it looked like he found his niche, averaging a career-high 37% from 3. He was turning into a poor man's version of Brook Lopez. However, he regressed the year after, got some nagging injuries, and his minutes dropped. Over the summer of 2019, he recently signed with the Milwaukee Bucks, but he isn't expected to be anything other than the 15th man on the team. Similar to Stanley Johnson, Bender now has a fresh start and a chance to prove himself. That is, if he actually gets any minutes. Number 5, Dante Exum, the 5th pick of the 2014 draft. As of now, Exum is still 24 years old and he suffered a ton of injuries. Right after his rookie season, he tore his ACL, causing him to miss his entire sophomore season. Then in October of 2017, he got shoulder surgery, missing all but 14 games of that season. In the most recent season, he got a bunch of ankle injuries and then tore his patellar tendon, an even worse injury than a torn ACL. He's never had a healthy season after his rookie year. Back then, I remember the enormous amount of hype that Exum was getting before the 2014 draft. In high school in Australia, then at the Nike Summit, the dude was legit. At the 2013 FIBA Under-19 tournament, he led Australia in scoring with over 18 points a game. According to Draft Express, Exum averaged 25.5 points and 4.8 assists in the next 4 games after his encounter with Team USA, almost single-handedly willing his team to the semifinals and an eventual 4th place finish. These were essentially the last competitive games Exum played in before his eventual NBA debut next season, and thus a substantial part of his evaluation as an NBA prospect. The hype was real coming into the draft, and since Andrew Wiggins had a mediocre college season, some even considered Exum as the possible number 1 pick. Unfortunately, his career has not been very exciting, and that's because of all the injuries. He's still young though, and he certainly can bounce back. Number 4, Thon Maker, the 10th pick of the 2016 draft. The 2016 class had only a few big names, and it was considered a top-heavy draft. However, Thon Maker was one of the interesting cases. Born in Sudan and growing up in Australia, Maker was never a serious prospect until his last year of high school. His draft night was filled with controversy because not much was known about him. Some people even dug up his old high school records and claimed that he was 3 or 4 years older than his listed age. It was a pretty big deal at the time, but regardless, he was still the 10th pick. What we did know was that he was a very raw prospect with an incredible work ethic. so he drew comparisons to his teammate Giannis. Kevin Garnett even said that Maker will become MVP someday. For a guy who's 7'1", he's very agile with above-average handles and a nice-looking jump shot. However, on the Bucks, he was never given the full opportunity to shine, which makes sense. They were quickly ramping up into contenders, but Maker just fell behind and slowly fell out of the rotation. Eventually, he'd get traded to Detroit and hasn't been much better. Number 3, Josh Jackson, the 4th pick of the 2017 draft. Coming into this draft, Jackson was deemed as a wild card. Draft Express called him an edgy, explosive, often emotional prospect with an erratic jumper and a mentality that straddles the border of intensity and instability. Jackson is a bit of an enigma. When he's at his best, Jackson looks like a potential number 1 pick, a star in the making. One of the popular comparisons was Andre Iguodala. Iggy took a while to get going, and Jackson might follow the same path. But as of now, he just finished his sophomore year and actually regressed. I think what a lot of these players have in common is that they were not drafted into a good situation to begin with. For a team like the Phoenix Suns, who haven't made the playoffs since 2010 and went through numerous coaching changes, it's not a great way to develop a young player. Jackson has shown a lot of promise, but it might take a complete overhaul of the team's culture for him to take the next step. Number 2, Markelle Fultz, the 1st pick of the 2017 draft. On draft night, the Sixers traded up to get Fultz because they believed he was the best prospect of the class. The 2017 draft had a bunch of big names, and it turns out all of them have had better careers than Fultz so far. He's going into his 3rd season now, and he's played a total of 33 games. I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt because he was diagnosed with a nerve condition in his shoulder. It would take a long time for rehab and physical therapy for him to regain his jump shot. Every time he played, he never looked right. There was always something janky with his game. Back in 2017, they were comparing him to James Harden or Russell Westbrook, which are both very high benchmarks. Being compared to 2 superstar guards is kinda crazy, and it gave us, the fans, some false expectations. Obviously, his play in college was incredible, but sometimes that doesn't translate to the pros. After a mid-season trade to Orlando, the Sixers have completely given up on Fultz, and now he has a brand new start. I don't know where his game is gonna go from here or if he'll ever recover. For all we know, he could be on a long list of players who succumbed to injuries before his career even started. That would be quite sad, but it's happened before. And number 1, Lonzo Ball, the 2nd pick of 2017. I put Lonzo on here first because honestly, the Lonzo hype was ridiculous. And it's funny cause most of it was because of his dad, LeVar Ball. Around 2017, he became such a huge media presence and made so many ridiculous remarks on national television. Things like saying he was gonna be better than Magic.
Man, Lonzo had that same impact Magic had.
Oh God!
I'm trying to tell you.
I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do.
You know why I say that?
It was Jordan.
Saying that Lonzo was already better than Steph, and LeVar even said that he himself would be able to defeat Michael Jordan one-on-one in his prime, despite never playing professional basketball in his entire life. All of this nonsense was making headlines, and as a result, Lonzo came in with some ridiculous expectations. Also, getting drafted to the Lakers gave him 10 times more media exposure compared to a regular NBA team, so that was part of it. However, in 2 seasons in LA, with a myriad of injuries and still shooting 40% on his free throws, the Lakers threw him into the Anthony Davis deal. Beginning in the 2019-20 season, Lonzo would be the starting point guard on the Pelicans, teaming up with Zion Williamson and some of his former teammates. On a side note, this trade was necessary because the Lakers want to make the most of LeBron's remaining years, so they needed a second superstar like Davis. On the other hand, it kinda ruins the Lakers' future, considering they were losing on purpose to get these high draft picks in the first place, like Lonzo and Ingram. But overall, I think Lonzo is in a better situation, having the chance to really play point guard instead of deferring to LeBron. Anyway, that's all folks. Those were 7 players who have not lived up to their hype since coming into the NBA. Let me know your thoughts on other young players who fit this bill, and do you think these guys will ever turn into stars? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.